Good evening, and welcome. Tonight we're addressing one of the most significant and challenging questions of our digital age. In a world increasingly shaped by online interaction, we must ask, should social media platforms be regulated with the same legal and ethical standards we apply to traditional newspapers and broadcasters? This is a debate with profound implications for free speech, corporate responsibility, and the very nature of our public discourse. To help us navigate this complex issue, we have two distinguished guests. Liam Chen is a digital rights activist and a vocal proponent for stronger regulation, and Anisa Sharma is a respected tech policy advisor who advocates for a more nuanced approach. We'll begin with opening statements from each of our guests. Liam, you have the floor.
Thank you, Dr. Reed. The argument is fundamentally simple. Social media companies are the most powerful publishers in human history, and it's time we started treating them as such. For years, these platforms have hidden behind the claim that they're merely neutral conduits for user-generated content, like a telephone company connecting calls. This is a dangerously outdated and misleading analogy. The reality is that these companies are active, not passive. They make deliberate editorial choices every second of every day. These choices, however, aren't made by human editors in a newsroom. They're made by complex, opaque algorithms. These algorithms aren't designed to inform, to educate, or to ensure accuracy. They're designed for one primary purpose: to maximize user engagement. And what drives engagement? Often, it's sensationalism, outrage, and emotionally charged content, which includes misinformation and hate speech. When a platform's algorithm selects a piece of dangerous misinformation and promotes it to millions of users because it's generating clicks and comments, that is an editorial decision. It is an act of publishing. If a newspaper printed libelous material on its front page, it would be held legally accountable. If a television network broadcasted harmful falsehoods, it would face consequences from regulators. Why do we grant a multi-billion-dollar social media corporation a free pass to do the same on an exponentially larger scale? The societal harm is undeniable. We've seen it poison our politics, undermine public health during a pandemic, and incite violence. Therefore, regulation isn't about censoring individual users. It's about demanding corporate responsibility. It's about ensuring the architectural choices made by these platforms prioritize public safety over profit. We need to hold these companies liable for the content they algorithmically amplify, not for what users simply post. It is this amplification that makes them publishers, and it is this amplification that must be regulated.
Thank you, Liam. Anisa, your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Liam's position, while well-intentioned, proposes a solution that's not only impractical, but would ultimately be more harmful to free expression than the problems it seeks to solve. Applying a 20th century regulatory model designed for a handful of newspapers and broadcasters to a 21st century ecosystem of billions of daily posts is like trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. It simply doesn't work. Let's first consider the fundamental difference in scale. A traditional newspaper publishes a few hundred articles a day. A platform like YouTube or Facebook deals with millions of hours of video and billions of posts. The idea of imposing publisher liability, which implies a responsibility to review content, is a logistical impossibility. Faced with the threat of constant litigation for content they cannot possibly pre-screen, platforms would have no choice but to become exceedingly cautious. This would lead to what we call collateral censorship. To avoid any legal risk, they would aggressively remove any content that's controversial, satirical, or challenging, even if it's perfectly legal. This would have a chilling effect on speech across the board. Furthermore, one of the great promises of the internet was its ability to democratize speech. Social media has given a voice to activists, artists, and marginalized communities who were systematically excluded by traditional media gatekeepers. Applying the old model risks recreating those same barriers, silencing the very voices the internet has empowered. The solution isn't to apply an outdated regulatory hammer. It's to develop a smarter, more modern toolkit. This includes investing in transparent, AI-driven content moderation that can operate at scale, but with clear and fair appeals processes. It means empowering users, giving them genuine control over their own feeds and the algorithms that curate them. And most importantly, it means investing heavily in media literacy education to build a more resilient and critical population that can navigate the digital world safely. Forcing these dynamic platforms into the rigid box of publisher would break the very structure of the open internet and lead to a more censored, less innovative digital future.
Thank you both for those clear and compelling opening arguments. Let's move into our first round of discussion. Anissa, I'd like to start with you. You advocate for user empowerment and media literacy, which are certainly important goals. However, how can an individual user, even a well-educated one, effectively counter a piece of harmful content that's being powerfully and invisibly amplified by the platform's own multi-million-dollar algorithm? Isn't the platform's deliberate, profit-driven promotion of such content a form of editorial endorsement that requires a higher level of accountability than just providing user controls?
That's the central challenge. And I agree that the invisible nature of algorithms is a significant part of the problem. However, the answer isn't to cede control to a government regulator, but to demand radical transparency from the platforms themselves. My vision isn't simply about adding a few more buttons in the settings menu. I'm talking about mandating that platforms make their content amplification algorithms fully transparent and understandable to the public and to researchers. Furthermore, users should have a meaningful right to control their experience. This includes the ability to switch from an engagement-based algorithm to a simple chronological feed, or to choose from different third-party algorithms that prioritize different values, such as accuracy or diverse viewpoints. This approach treats users like adults. It empowers them by revealing how the system works and giving them the tools to change it. This is far preferable to appointing a government body or the platform's own legal department as the ultimate arbiter of truth, which is a role fraught with peril for free speech.
If I may, Dr. Reed?
Briefly, Liam.
Anissa's proposal for transparency is a necessary step, but it's entirely insufficient on its own. Transparency without accountability is meaningless. A platform can be completely transparent about the fact that its algorithm promotes hateful content because it drives engagement. But that doesn't solve the problem. A transparent system that knowingly and profitably promotes societal harm is still a harmful system, and it still requires intervention.
That brings us to the core of your argument, Liam, so let me turn the next question to you. You call for publisher liability. However, critics like Anissa fear this would create a ministry of truth, whether that's a government agency or a corporate legal team. Given the immense volume of global content in countless languages and cultural contexts, how could any regulatory body possibly manage this without creating a bureaucratic nightmare prone to error, bias, and political abuse?
This is a common misrepresentation of what regulation should look like. The goal is not, and has never been, to have government regulators approve every individual post. That is a straw man argument. The focus should be on what is called process-based regulation. This means we don't regulate the content itself, but the systems and processes the platforms use to manage content. Regulators would conduct audits to ensure that a platform's systems are designed responsibly. Are they adequately investing in moderation in all the languages they operate in? Do they have processes to quickly identify and downrank content that is demonstrably false and causing public harm, especially after it's been flagged by users or fact-checkers? It's about establishing a legal duty of care, similar to the standards we impose on many other industries. A car manufacturer has a duty of care to ensure its vehicles aren't designed with dangerous flaws. A social media company should have a duty of care to ensure its amplification systems aren't designed to recklessly endanger the public for profit. This approach holds them accountable for systemic failures, not for individual pieces of speech.
A quick response, Anissa?
The phrase demonstrably false is doing a lot of heavy lifting in Liam's argument. Who demonstrates it? Who verifies it? What's considered a dangerous falsehood in one country may be considered legitimate political dissent in another. Building a regulatory system around such a subjective standard, even one focused on process, is dangerously easy to weaponize against unpopular opinions or government critics.
We're nearing the end of our time. I'd now like to ask each of you for a brief closing statement. Anissa, please begin.
Throughout this discussion, we've returned to a key point. The model of regulation for traditional media is an ill-fitting and dangerous framework for the internet. Imposing it would not create a more responsible internet, but a more sanitized and less free one, where platforms preemptively delete any challenging content to avoid liability. This would silence crucial conversations and harm the very communities that have found a voice online. The path forward isn't to look backward to old regulations. It's to pioneer a new, multi-layered approach that prioritizes user control, algorithmic transparency, and widespread media literacy education. Let's build a more resilient and informed online population, rather than restricting their ability to speak and share.
Thank you. Liam, your closing statement.
For more than a decade, social media giants have operated with immense power and have accumulated unprecedented profits, all while bearing little to no responsibility for the significant societal costs of their business model. This debate has never been about censoring individuals or punishing unpopular opinions. It's about finally holding these powerful corporations accountable for the architecture of their platforms, which are currently designed to prioritize engagement and profit over public safety. We have safety standards for our food, for the cars we drive, and for our workplaces. It's time we demanded the same common-sense safeguards for the digital environments where we spend our lives, raise our children, and conduct our democracy.
Thank you, Liam Chen and Anissa Sharma, for your articulate and passionate arguments on this vital issue. The debate over how to balance freedom and responsibility online is one that truly defines our era. The question left for all of us to consider is what role we expect these platforms, and indeed ourselves, to play in shaping our shared reality. Good evening.